guys ready?
Yep.
Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is a disappointing pod following the Alamo Bowl. The Sooners lose 38-24. Very disappointing game. I was there. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor. Oh, man, we're all off the.
We're as discombobulated as that offense was.
Yep. I'm Connor. And that's Lucas over there.
Yep, it was a very discombobulated offense. So let's get into it and talk about it. Very disappointing way to end 2023. Not at all what we wanted to see or thought we'd have to see today. I guess the number one thing beyond anything is the turnovers. Even with the problems with the offensive line and the occasional breakdown in defense, although the defense played overall really well, we'll talk about that. I think that if you turn the ball over 6 times and in critical fashion, in critical positions, one time when you're in a position to score, actually twice when you're in a position to score, one of them that leads directly to an opposing score with the defense scoring on you, you're just not likely to win the football game, no matter what else happens.
Yeah, that's probably one stat that Mike Houck is not going to tweet out is the last time OU had 6 turnovers in a game. So
it's got to be going back pretty far. I don't know if it ever happened in the Stoops era. It possibly happened in the Blake era. You almost have to go back to the old wishbone days
when we were just fumbling all the
crazy fumble amounts and many times overcoming them. Before we go any further, let's thank our post-game sponsor, Tobacco Exchange. They've been our post-game sponsor all season. Really thankful for them. We aren't having an opportunity to enjoy a cigar right now, but we do have, what was it? Some Hemingway?
Some Hemingway classics.
Yeah, so thank you to them.
Having those.
Very much looking forward to those. Just as well, we're not able to have those right now because it's pretty late at night, and
celebrating.
That's a celebratory cigar, and this is not a celebration, but thank you to Tobacco Exchange. Great selection, 3 great locations throughout the metro area. More Oklahoma City, Edmond. Go check them out and tell them that we sent you. So, in addition to the turnovers, and we can get into the turnovers themselves, I think, to me, the number 2 thing that has to be talked about was what we feared, and that was the offensive line was going to just be a complete shamble. And at times they were good, at times they were very, very bad. I guess you could say this is a bit of a Caden Green problem. You know, when you've got a guy like that, a key component who's absent because he's leaving the program, that's somebody you can point some fingers to and blame. But overall, it was just really, really bad. Connor, you mentioned that there's a lack of development, and you really expect to have a little more development out of your second string players. Clearly wasn't there with these guys.
Well, and especially with a team like Arizona, right? I mean, we're not going up against the Alabamas of the world or the SEC opponents that we're going to be facing next season. And, you know, Arizona rolled out a lot of veteran guys tonight, a lot of seniors, but at the same time, I still expect some sort of performance. And there were times where I really felt like going into that third quarter when we jumped out and scored pretty quickly. Similar thing that we've had all year where we have chances to put a game away and it's almost like we just choose not to, whether it's some boneheaded play or a turnover in this instance. And it's exhausting. And I think that at times our line looked good, especially in some of those situations where Arnold's making those competitive throws. But man, that fourth quarter, they crumbled. I mean, they fell apart.
It looked like Everett got hurt in the third quarter or so. And I'm going to blame Andrew Rain for that, for being selfish and not coming to play in this bowl game. Caden Green transferred, that's, whatever there. But to sit out as a center who's probably, is he a draft pick, period?
Yeah, I don't know.
At best, he's a, 4th, 5th rounder?
Right.
You're not going to decrease your stock by playing this game. You could improve it maybe a little bit if you had a really good game. But so Everett looked decent for most of the game, but he got injured in the third quarter, and the offensive line as a whole completely ran out of gas in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Jackson was doing his best to stay in the pocket. He wasn't trying to do a bunch of rollout, and when he did roll out, there was really not anybody open downfield. Our receivers didn't get a lot of separation in the second half of the game, outside of the Brad Thompson one to start the third quarter, and then he got injured when they called it. Was it a fumble? Yeah, they called it a fumble, but it wasn't. He was down, and he didn't come back in the game after that, I don't think. So the receivers, it just seemed like, and even Drake today, I mean, he had a drop in the very first series, but he had a couple good catches over the middle, but still didn't seem like he was getting as open as normal. I don't know if that was just Arizona's defense on that or what was going on, but when Jackson had time and receivers were open, he made great throws. But I mean, you can't catch the ball and fumble it. And he did telegraph 2 of those interceptions were bad. But did they rule that Farouk one an interception?
Fumble.
They did rule it a fumble.
Yeah.
So he had 2 fumbles.
Yeah, Farouk had 2 fumbles, critical fumbles.
I thought they might call that an interception because he threw it. He threw it to Farouk and he caught it and made maybe 1 or 2 steps and then got hit and the ball popped up. Then the guy caught it in the air, so I wasn't sure how they would do that.
Yeah,
but
Farouk,
you got to hold on to the damn.
He's got to hold on to the ball.
You got to hold on to the ball.
Yeah,
I mean he fumbled the kickoff of this Tulsa game after like a 70-yard run back. He had another fumble.
The critical Kansas fumble.
Yep, the critical Kansas fumble.
I think he muffed a kick or fumbled a kickoff in that, or he had 2 fumbles. He had 2 big plays in that one as well.
Yeah, it was
I don't get it. It seems like he just didn't. The second half of his season just was not very.
Well, and a guy like that, like that's a guy that for Jackson Arnold, you need to be able to lean on a guy like that to say, hey, if I'm going to give you I know I'm not going to make the best throws, but if I'm going to make a throw and you can catch it and it's there, you need to not only catch the ball, but you need to take care of it as well.
Well, one of them was a great throw with, and it's great yards after catch.
Yeah. And
he just can't put the ball away. So we have 2.
On the 10-yard line.
Yeah, one on the 10-yard line, one on the 5-yard line. I mean, or roughly. And so just 2 critical times to turn the ball over when you're in scoring position. I mean, any turnover can be critical, but it's really critical when you are in great scoring position deep into the red zone. That was very frustrating.
6 turnovers, it's going to be hard to win a game.
It's going to be exceptionally hard to win a game against anybody. And we were yet in this game until right at the end. When we talked about in the midweek pod, turnovers being a thing to fear, and those fears were realized really in droves. We had early struggles and bad decisions, I think, on defense as well as Jackson Arnold, and offensively, maybe some play calling seemed to overcome those. We really figured out our scheme, what we wanted to do, and we're having a lot of success in the second quarter, came out strong in the third quarter, and then just let that slip away, just like you said, Connor. Couldn't find a way to put an opponent away. Yet again, just can't put an opponent away. Kind of the tale of our season for every game that we lost and some of the games that were closer than they needed to be.
Saltchuk finished with 8.9 yards a carry on 17 carries, and I thought he looked really good, except for it seemed like he tweaked something maybe in the late third, early.
Yeah, we both saw that. He came up.
He was
gimpy.
He came up a little gimpy, and then he wasn't finishing his runs like he normally does. Mm-hmm. He was jet off on some of those where it was open on the end, and he would take off and get 5 yards past line of scrimmage, but then it seemed to slow down but he was still gaining like 15 yards on some of those. But the last 10 yards of the run, he was definitely slower looking, and I think he tweaked something. But I'm not happy with the play calling in this game at all. I don't care. We had 500 whatever yards. What did we end up with? 530 something? I don't know.
Seriously?
560.
I had it here until my app messed up. 562, but it sure didn't feel like it.
Well, no, you should score more than the 24 points that we did.
Yeah, we had 201 rushing yards and 361 passing yards.
Jeez.
Didn't rush the ball.
We just didn't run the ball enough, and especially early. The very first series, I mean, did we go 3 and out?
Three straight throws.
3 throws, 3 and out. I realized
interception. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're trying to get Jackson Arnold into a rhythm. You wanted to do short passes to get his confidence up and all that, but I mean, I thought Seth Luttrell was going to come in here and run the ball a little bit, and
Well, even some of
really
those,
didn't-
even some of those
much.
passes you're hoping that Arnold gets a rhythm on early in the game were not. They're not easy passes.
They weren't
I mean,
They were
they're
to
him
the
rolling out
sideline.
too. They're him rolling out on the run, and his receiver having to run parallel with him. Those are tough. It wasn't the third drive when we see Nick Anderson running a 7-yard comeback route where he's just sitting down on the ball and Jackson's throwing it directly to his chest. It wasn't anything like that.
Even though you're throwing some of those, you're throwing from the left hash to the right sideline, and that's a long way across the field. I mean,
so
even though it's only a 7-yard comeback, it's really a 35-yard throw because of the distance between the hash to the sideline.
Yeah, schematically, it seemed like they weren't figuring out I don't know. They must have saw something and it didn't work out about how they wanted to roll him out and get what you would assume would be easy looks, little nickel dime stuff, and it wasn't there. I thought overall with Jackson, he had at times really great pocket presence. In fact, sometimes just a command of the pocket, stepped up and around pressure really well. At other times, he took too long to make a decision, and that is in conjunction with bad decisions that he made at certain points. So a very, true freshman-like performance, to tell you the truth. What do you expect out of a guy? He showed tremendous poise at times and a lot of arm talent. Other times he looked like he was in a tunnel for sure. So it kind of back to our poll question and how we feel about it. I don't know. I don't really feel that different about a bad performance tonight, other than he looked more like a freshman than I expected or hoped he would. But he was, to your concern, Lucas, on the run a lot. He did not have the protection that you would need to have to really have a fair hearing. So at times he was very good, and that really just lived up to my expectations. So it's kind of a muted performance for me. It's neither changing my expectations negatively or positively. It's just really a little bit of both of what I would come to expect could have been the case. Definitely hoped it wasn't going to be the bad portions of that, but it was.
Yeah, and you said it really well. I think he just looked more like a freshman than I wanted him to, and that's probably not fair. And we could probably say that across the fan base is, I think a lot of people thought that. And maybe it's not fair to some of my testaments early on in the season as well. I mean, there were times where the game just looked like it was moving a little bit faster than what he could handle, and especially late in that game. Which, on the other side of that, give him a lot of credit for what he did at BYU, because that's a very high pressure situation in a conference game, and
With a lot still at stake.
Yeah, with a lot still at stake, and he comes in and delivers on that. So I think if there's anything to lean back on, it's something like that, where while he did look like a freshman at times today, there were some very, very quality passes.
Good decisions, a couple of really good RPOs.
Yep.
A couple times where he is threading a needle in the right way to get the ball to a guy. The deep ball was really, really good. Not perfect, but really, really good to Thompson.
The one interception that was throwing to
Stoops, he double clutched it.
Yeah, that was really cool.
If he got that out earlier and about
the
safety wouldn't have been able to get over in time.
Yeah, and so he's really behind the 8 ball at that point in the game, and that's really when the offensive line started to break down as well. So just not a fair hearing for the Sooners overall, and not for Jackson Arnold for sure.
I did see in the post-game press conference, he essentially said that Luttrell and Finley called good games, and it was all on him. It was his mistakes that cost the game. So, I mean, he's
good man owning
he's taking the blame, falling on the sword.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And Luttrell said the same thing on his part. Which is, I mean, I don't know how much stock we can take from this. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to pull positive out of this because it sucks, like what we just left. But we need to beat Arizona regardless of who we're running out there at quarterback. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. But again, I don't know how much we can really say, going into next season. And I do agree with you, Lucas. I think Luttrell, from an overall, regardless of the offense he was running, there were some play calls that he missed on. But I don't know. It's just that I don't want to put a lot of stock into
I know
it.
it's crazy that we had 562 yards and it doesn't feel like
it's
a very good game.
But in that's been the case for the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Right? Like very productive days statistically without the result to prove, without the result to show for it.
Yeah, and for all intent and purposes, you're looking at 14 points that are taken off the board by those 2 turnovers, so the both Farouk turnovers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think you can put a lot of stock in any of this. You just can't, because it's such a weird bowl game in the realm of a weird thing, which is bowl games today. And that's always been the case to one degree or another. I think what you take away from it is you got 15 extra practices, you got more experience with guys and got them a chance to get out there and showcase them. You a little bit of pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, you just can't put too much stock in it for the same reason that you're not going to remember this game. We'll remember this game, but the general fan and the general narration won't remember this game because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's just a one extra thing that's happening at the end of you trying to achieve what your ultimate goals are. Those goals failed when we lost to Kansas and Oklahoma State, and then when we failed to get to the Big 12 title. That's when our goals failed and the season was over. Everything else after that, especially this, is just going through the motions of finishing it and building on it. It's consolation, as well as hopefully you're building for the future out of it. But it's going to be a trivia question: who did OU lose to in the bowl game at the end of the 2023 season? That would be tough for people to remember.
Yeah,
who aren't really big, true, dyed-in-the-wool OU fans like we are. I think if we look at 2024, there's a lot of positives to take away from where we stand today. A lot of work to be done, no doubt about it. I'd like to see it, and we'll talk about it next week when we pod, where we are on the transfer portal on getting key players, especially at offensive line. Have we nailed down the guys that we're, I guess have we gotten the 2 commitments on offensive linemen? And that's basically a done deal.
Yeah, 2 Michigan State guys. There was a third that we were trying to get
And
that
he's
ended up
retaining.
saying he's staying at Michigan State.
So can we go get somebody else there? Can we get, how do we finish this transfer class? And how does that position us for what we want to build on in 2024?
Yep.
And those will be the key takeaways there. I hate to put a rose-colored glasses spin on it, but you have the potential to do this constructively either way. If you win a game and you're really, really good, I meant you're really, really good. It also could mean, hey, here's how good we are and we can take it to the next level. None of that has to happen. You could just rest on your laurels and get bad. If you barely win a game, you could say, well, we are going to learn a lot from a game that we barely won. We could learn a lot from a loss here. And one of those things we could learn a lot from is you can get your ass beat. And you guys are not invincible, so you got to put a lot of work into this. You're not where you want to be yet. And so let's put the off-season work in to get to where you want to be so that you don't put a product on the field that's this honestly kind of embarrassing at times. Let's get everything working in the same direction so that it's as good as it was tonight when it was good, and even better, and can be as great as it can be if everything's moving in the same direction. I think that's the general takeaway from it. It's a bitter thing. It's not fun, but it's just a bowl game at the end of the day, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it really, I mean, it stings right now, but to your point, I mean, this, as much as I wanted this to be a launch point into next season, I don't want this to be a barrier either. But it's just like one of those things. It's like, I want to get over that hump, like this stupid proverbial hump that we've been, behind for even, I mean, you can go back to the Kyler to 2018. I mean, even with those quote unquote dominant teams, like not being able to put teams away, not being able to ever just sit and be comfortable in big games or conference games or however you want to put it.
And not achieving all your goals.
Yeah. And it's just, and lately not really feeling like we're close to achieving a goal.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part. But like you said, I think the feeling that we have is tenfold in that locker room. I feel for the guys like Drake and those guys who are going out on a night like tonight where, they're having to send themselves off in a not so great fashion, but it's hopefully just going to be a part of the growing pains that gets us to the level that we want to be at, because I do think we are a team that can get there. It's just sometimes it feels like we are so far off center.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things that I wrote down, and I wrote it down while we were winning, but it's still true, is I think a tale of the game that was very successful was number 10, and that's Kip Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So the other
Kip
side of the ball, he played great. He had an injury, goes out, gets his ankle taped up, and apparently that was an ankle injury, comes back in and just plays great. Key pressure on the quarterback, very, very strong part of the defense. So
I don't know where Canic's going to play next year.
Yeah.
We were running some interesting stuff. Like we were running 3 safeties a lot of the game.
Yeah, Brent said that he saw that he thought we could run a 3-down lineman on the front and get some speed up there. But I didn't see any comments about the 3 safeties, which was very strange.
And it was consistent. I mean, it was for the last 3 quarters, the
you
entire
have 3
time.
safeties and a cheetah.
Yeah, and a cheetah. Exactly.
That was it was weird.
So
and the first quarter it wasn't working at all. I mean, we gave up 13 points right off the bat.
real quick,
right,
holding them to a field goal in one case, but then, in 2 cases, and then we did again hold them to field goals later. It was just a great performance. You're giving them the ball with those turnovers deep in your own territory, and not only did we hold them to field goals, we knocked them out of field goal range at one point, and was that in the second quarter, I think.
Yeah.
So
with a big sack.
Big sack. So defense, other than a couple breakdowns, it played really.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good to see that defensive front as well. Whether it be the linebackers getting back there or seeing some of those corner blitzes. Like there was pretty consistent pressure on the quarterback, which we have been, really, really asking for the back half of the season, because there for a while it was non-existent, and there was some physicality up front. So, and at the end of the day, 6 turnovers, there's only so much you can do as a defense before you're a little bit gassed yourself, and you're giving up in very plus territory for Arizona and their scoring. So, great performance, in my opinion, by the defense outside of those first couple of drives.
Yeah, I mean, it really sucked that we had all the momentum when Kenai Walker intercepts that ball on about, I don't know, what was it, their 20 or so, or 25.
Yeah. Yep.
And then right after that's the
next play
fumble on the 10-yard line. Mm-hmm. I mean, our one turnover that didn't result in points because we gave it right back to them, literally.
Mm-hmm.
That's brutal at that point.
Yep. And it turns into, I mean, they don't get points off that. They punt, but we don't get points off the punt after that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a legitimate 7 points that were kept off the board.
We settled for a field goal. We had 1st and goal inside the 5, down in the end zone that we were in.
That's when
you feel like,
and
that's when Everett got hurt.
That's when Everett was hurt.
Yeah. And that's I'll point to that drive specifically, or that sequence of plays. That was really, really poor offensive coordination, in my opinion. You get down to the 5-yard line, you go tempo, you hand the ball off to Sawchuk when really doesn't even look like our guys are set. Everett's obviously not ready. Snaps the ball, Sawchuk does some crazy spin move and gets a no gain. And then I think we run it 2 more times.
Yeah, Jackson Arnold up the middle.
Jackson Arnold, yeah.
Well, that was after Everett was
right.
I mean, Everett was gimpy.
Yeah, and we run it right into his
gap. I told Steve, I was like, yeah, the one guy that you can't have blocked very well because he can barely move.
You're running right.
You're running Jackson Arnold with no like fullback blocking or even a running back or Stogner. Nobody's in there to help push that hole open, and Everett can barely do anything because he couldn't move.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that
made no sense.
And it's just missed opportunities. I mean, that's
hopefully it's
about all year.
Hopefully it's a learning opportunity for Seth Luttrell, but also hopefully we can say he did not have his offense
what he
implemented by any means. We mentioned that on the midweek that he was not expecting to have his offense in any fashion for what he wants to do. And
well, I hope to God he did not.
Yeah,
and then he still with the tempo too, especially at the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of frustrated with how how they were moving the ball against us, and then we were just tempo, not doing anything. It felt like Lebby was up there for that first quarter.
Yeah, it felt like we just kept giving the ball back. I mean, it was crazy. The first 5 minutes, that first quarter lasted like 35 minutes.
You have to
40
get your
minutes.
freshman quarterback settled, and even if that's what you've done all season with the fast stuff, it can't be that difficult.
That's the
to
thing.
take a couple breaths in
Yes.
between.
It cannot be hard to
can't
back
be.
off of that. It can't be.
It'd be hard to go the other way. It'd be hard to
Speed up.
Right.
implement
You gotta use
tempo.
that, yeah.
One thing that I was very pleased with was the officiating. I thought this SEC officiating crew did really well tonight. They got some calls right. They got together and met, came back with a coherent and I thought correct explanation and a call on several occasions. They missed a few things.
Yeah.
They missed.
They missed on it. It was a 3rd and 1, and he throws the bomb to like the 40-yard line or something like that. And Lualu had beat his first guy, and he had a double team, and the second guy just grabbed him and pulled him down so the quarterback could throw this 50-yard pass down the middle of the field. And did they end up scoring on that drive, or was that one where we?
No, that's the one where we
got
stifled them.
sacked
Yeah,
again.
with the sacked a good amount of.
But they should have been punting from, I think their own
Like the
15 or so.
Yep.
Yeah.
And instead of getting all the way down the field, using a couple more minutes and having to punt at the end.
Oh, that's something else I
Speaking
had.
of punting,
Yeah, sorry.
punter looked really good today.
Hunter did look good. Yeah.
His best punt of the year came when there was
At
0
halftime.
seconds on the freaking
Yeah.
clock.
Well, did what
great.
we've been asking for, which was to just punt towards the sideline and get what you can get.
Yeah.
If you can get it, if it goes out the 15, that's better than the 20. If it goes out the 5, that's great.
Yeah.
That
He
was
has
really
22
nice to
confidence
see.
corners. Yeah.
I don't know what changed there or what, but that
And
was
inside,
really nice.
maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
that was intelligent.
One thing that really frustrated me was the terrible use of timeouts in the second half.
Burn 2 critical
And
timeouts.
at the end of the day, we get beat by 14. I don't know how much it matters in the grand scheme, but
Could have.
it could have. And I don't really that looked like year one Brent Venables type of stuff where we're calling timeouts early in the third and then
And those were on offense and defense.
Yep.
So maybe on the offensive one, they just that speaks to being out of sorts because this is a makeshift offense that's been implemented over the past month.
The offensive one, it was 2nd and 10, and there was 21 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
Play clock was going close to 0, so instead of taking the 5-yard delay game, we called the timeout.
And defense
I looked
were
at Steve and I said, I really hope we don't need that
Yep.
late in the game.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was looking at the ESPN stat. We were 96.2% to win at that point.
Those numbers are always so
More than-
inflated and
right
stupid.
before the end of the third quarter when they end up getting the. Now was it the third quarter?
No, I think that it was like the next
next
plays.
play.
The Julio,
'Cause there was
the
2 seconds
Farouk.
left.
Yeah, it was the Farouk fumble.
Yeah, when they scored and then went for the 2-point conversion, there was 2 seconds left at the end of the third quarter. So literally, that timeout might have changed the game.
Yeah.
In a negative way.
Yeah.
And then the other timeout was
We were mismatched.
we had a bunch of mismatch. They had 3 receivers to the right, and then we had 2 guys coming.
We had Kip on
And
one.
that happened
and-
multiple times
yeah.
in the game where they just had one receiver running free because nobody.
They weren't shifting
Which with 3 safeties, you would think that
Someone stepped out.
someone would go over there.
Yeah. So maybe that was
I don't know.
a failure to get that developed completely in time for this to be implemented in action.
I know it's gonna be a long road,
It's going to be a long drive back tomorrow. We're going to have to do the, requisite extra mileage associated with any loss. You have to do, make it a long trip home. But no, it'll be tough. We not the ending we wanted, but overall a pretty good season. We'll recap it a little bit more in the coming week or so. But we do finish 10-3. That's a good record. That's a better record than most other teams are going to be able to claim or ever are able to claim. So we are building for the future. We're just not there yet. We're definitely not to where we want to be, but I think we're on the right track, and I feel pretty good about it. I feel better about it, to be honest, than I would feel if, for some reason, Dylan Gabriel were coming back for his super senior year, or whatever you want to call it, and if Jeff Lebby were still here. So I feel a lot better from that standpoint. I feel really good about where the defense is.
Yep. Yep.
Well, we're gonna be back with more talk about the college football playoff and everything, and where we are with portal transfers and recruiting, any new recruiting news that develops over the next week or so.
And go over how bad our locks of the week were.
We're going to go over our locks of the week and how those have ended up. And we'll have more analysis as we get into the off season and we start our own personal weight training to get up for spring drills. But until then, Boomer.
Sooner.